Welcome back to my channel, Ragamuffins. My name is Raggy Rog, and today I am bringing you a tier list in which I take all of the Disney princesses, plus a few more, and I am going to be determining, based on what I know about them, to decide whether or not they would most likely be a Jedi or a Sith. Like, yes, the ones from Star Wars. So, it's not going to be completely black and white. It's not, would you be a Jedi, would you be a Sith? I have 4 different categories here, and I have if they would just outrightly be a Jedi, if they would be a Sith, if they are just Force sensitive, so that is to say they have the powers of the Force, but they have no affiliation with either Jedi or Sith, and then there's the ones who are just not Force sensitive at all, so they couldn't fall into a category if they wanted to. Now, for some context, I'm going to be respecting the idea that a Jedi is supposed to be a Force sensitive individual who values balance. That is to say, they respect the Force and the way of life and the way of nature and yada yada yada. And then there are the Sith, who value passion and acting on emotion, and are not necessarily evil, but they definitely are going to use the Force to further their own ends, if not the ends of others, albeit in a questionable way. If you haven't watched Star Wars at all ever, then what rock are you sleeping under currently? But also, this video may not make a lot of sense to you, but in any case, I hope you enjoy it, and we're just going to get straight into it. So, here we have Anastasia, and Anastasia, I feel like Anastasia, it's kind of like an Anakin Skywalker situation, where I think she would be Force sensitive, for sure, except she has been, like, completely segregated from any kind of influence, Jedi or Sith, so I would say she is simply a Force sensitive person. Then we have Anna, and I think she's just not Force sensitive. There's not a lot that she does in her movie to make me think that she could have any kind of power or influence over the Force. And personality-wise, I think she's just, like, it could be because she's quite immature in the first movie, but, like, that doesn't reflect well on my opinion of someone having Force powers. Then we have Ariel, and Ariel, I think Ariel would be a Sith. Like, she is quite self-serving in her movie, and she makes decisions based on, like, purely on emotion. So she's willing to serve whatever end meets her needs now. Like, and that's very much a Sith mentality. And it's like she may mature, but, like, just her innate way of being is to be self-serving. And that's not necessarily a Sith trait. But what makes me think that she would be Force sensitive is because she is, like, a different species. Which is, like, does that make you a Force user? It certainly makes her magical to me. So there you go. Then we have Princess Ada from A Bug's Life, and it's like, I think she's just not very Force sensitive. She doesn't have any sense of, like, cognition, or, like, precognition. She doesn't have any, like, she doesn't do anything to make me think that she's, like, Force sensitive, I'll say that. Then we have Aurora, and I think that Aurora would actually be a Jedi. So, like, the thing about Aurora is that she interacts with nature constantly, and she's got, like, this connection with it in such a way that it's like she clearly respects nature and the way that things are meant to be, and she doesn't necessarily do any, like, good for anyone. She doesn't go out of her way to change the world. She isn't trying to change it in any way, which is actually very true of how the Jedi are. They are only looking to maintain the balance of the way of the Force and nature itself and everything like that. So I think she might actually be a Jedi. Then we have Belle. And I think Belle would be Force sensitive. I don't think that she has any affiliation one way or the other. I reckon she would lean towards Sith, because she is rebellious in her own way, which is not really the Jedi way. But for now, I'm just going to say she would only be Force sensitive. Lottie would absolutely be a Sith. She makes no effort to hide the fact that she is completely self-serving. And while she does do things later in the movie to show that she thinks of others, her decisions are driven purely by emotion. She gets very emotional. Whether she feels happy or sad, that's what drives her emotions. She doesn't make decisions based on what she thinks will actually benefit people. She makes it based on what she thinks will make her feel good. So if she does have Force powers, she's a Sith. Cinderella, I would say, is probably a Jedi. Cinderella, she doesn't do a lot in the movie to allude to her having powers, but similar to Aurora, she does interact with animals. She's got, like, that connection with nature, and she also is able to call upon the power of, like, a higher being, that being the fairy godmother. And it's a stretch to compare the fairy godmother to the Force, But I'll say this, that Aurora actually also does that with her 3 fairy godmothers that she has in the movie. So it's like, that's interesting that there's kind of that pattern forming here. Then we have Princess Dot, and weirdly, unlike Princess Ada, I think that Princess Dot might actually be Sith material. And it's like, that's very true of a child. Children are self-serving, they act emotionally, and she is very much that. Unlike Ada, I feel like Dot does a lot more in her movie. She's a lot more proactive, which makes me think that she may have the will of the Force on her side. You let me know what you think. Then we have Princess Eilonwy, and Princess Eilonwy, I would say, is Force sensitive with no particular affiliation. We don't really learn a lot about her other than that she is a princess and she has been kidnapped by the Horned King, and that's all we really know about her, apart from getting to know her at the same rate as Taran does throughout the movie. And she doesn't really do a lot to show that she has any powers, but she is proactive and she is a thinker. So again, similar to Dot, she may actually have the will of the Force on her side. Then we have Elsa, and if you want an example of a Disney princess who is a Sith, this is Elsa, or at least in the case of the first movie. In the second movie, I might actually go as far to say that she turns into a Jedi, but that's probably a thing. There are probably Sith turned Jedi. Probably, I'm not sure. But Elsa in the first movie is definitely a Sith because well, first of all, she has powers, which is that's a red flag for being Force sensitive. But she also, she almost abuses her emotions. She pushes her emotions down until she allows them to boil up into rage and sadness and all of these things that result in the movie that we got. So there you go. Esmeralda is Force sensitive. Esmeralda does not use her powers for good or evil. She just has her powers. And I would say that her powers come in the form of being able to read how a person is feeling. Call it being an empath, I guess, but with actual powers that allow you to tap into a person emotionally. It's kind of like the Vulcan power from Star Trek. I don't watch Star Trek, but because Vulcans can do the thing where they can mind meld and kind of feel what another creature is feeling. I think that's how it works. So I feel like she could do that. Don't ask me what these determinations are based on. It's purely speculation. Then we have Giselle. And I would say Sith. I wanted to say that she might be a Jedi because she ticks a lot of the same boxes as Aurora and Cinderella. She talks to nature, but she's also a very emotional person, and she also kind of suppresses negative emotions. When she feels sad or angry, she kind of pushes it down because she doesn't know what to do with it. And that's not really the Jedi way. It's very abusive of her own feelings, which is kind of how a Sith would operate. Then we have Jane, and I'm just going to say that Jane is not Force sensitive. She is a smart, gifted young woman, but she does not have any Force powers. She is very much, she reeks of the vibe of a person battling against all odds with no Force powers or no will of the Force on their side. So I feel bad for her. Princess Jasmine, Sith, because very emotional, very self-serving, but she's clearly got, I can't really get around the fact that they just have the will of the Force on their side. I'm actually going to go double whammy here. I'm going to say that both Kiara and Nala are both not Force sensitive, while they, they're lions, right? I just don't get a vibe out of them. Kida is a Jedi working to help restore her empire, and that's literally it. Whatever big moves she does, whatever risky things she does that could endanger other people, are done with the intention of just trying to restore order and peace to her land. So there you go. Princess Leia, easiest one here. She's a Jedi. If you know anything about the expanded universe, you know that she is Force sensitive, and she does actually become a Jedi in the expanded universe. So there you go. Maid Marian, on the other hand, is not Force sensitive at all. Maid Marian is completely useless in my opinion, and if Robin Hood wasn't there, she would just be left to her fate. She does nothing to help herself. Megara is not Force sensitive. There's not a lot to say about Megara other than that she is, it's kind of the exact same thing as Jane. She's working against all odds, but she struggles the entire time because she is working against, not having any, innate Force powers, I guess. Melody is Force sensitive. Unlike her mother, she is Force sensitive, but she has not been subjected to anything that would make her tip one way or the other. Then we have Merida, and Merida, Sith. Very emotional, especially at the start of her movie. Gives into rage, gives into anger. She does things like she's a bit self-serving, and you can be self-serving in the sense that you seek to serve others as well. If that gives you a sense of making yourself feel better, you know. And she Merida cares too much, and that's what makes her a Sith. Moana, I would say Moana is a Jedi. Whatever powers she has are used to restore the heart of Te Fiti. And while she may show a lot of emotion throughout her journey, it's only in like a very light sense. She accepts that she feels happy. She accepts that she feels sad. She gets through her emotions very quickly, and that's not a bad thing because she knows how to navigate how she feels. And what she's doing throughout her movie, trying to restore the heart of Te Fiti, she is on a mission to restore peace to the world, and not for her own benefit. She's not looking to, you know, garner fame or anything like that. And while it does serve the purpose of her getting out into the world, she wants to explore the sea. That's what she wants to do. Moana, it's not why. Like, she doesn't go out and do that for the sake of it. She does it because she was called to a higher purpose. And otherwise, she may have just stayed on her island forever. And that's why she is a Jedi. Mulan? I have to say Mulan is a Sith. Mulan is quite similar to Moana. Everything Mulan does is because she is called to a higher purpose for someone else. But it was still her decision to disguise herself as a man and take her father's place. It was a selfless but selfish act because she knew that what she was doing could have had her family put in a lot of trouble, but she did it because of how she felt. She was unable to accept the flow of the Force, if you will, and that's what makes her a Sith. Then we have Pocahontas, and I can't think of a better example in this list for a Jedi. No one respects the way of the Force, or nature, if you will, than Pocahontas. That's her whole shtick. There is nothing that she does in her movie that is not guided by the need to create peace and order, and that is what a Jedi does. While she accepts her emotions and she accepts the way she feels, and she still has a ways to go. She doesn't know how she feels about John Smith. She doesn't know how she feels about anything, but she knows how to navigate her emotions while she's going through it, and she's got her purpose, and that is to maintain order. And that's why Pocahontas is the perfect Jedi. Then we have Rapunzel, and Rapunzel is definitely Force sensitive, but has no affiliation, if only because she has not been subjected to anything. I would say that she would probably lean towards Sith because she is very emotional and self-serving in that sense. And you can understand that because she was locked away in a tower for her whole life. So no one is going to blame you if you are kind of self-serving after getting out of that situation. But otherwise, I would say for the most part, she just has Force sensitivity, but she doesn't act upon it. Then we have Raya, and Raya is definitely a Sith because she is very emotional. And while compared to some others on this list in the Sith section, she is probably a lot better at staying a bit level-headed over the others throughout, intense situations. She is still self-serving and she acts upon her emotions ultimately. Then we have Snow White, and I just don't get a Force vibe out of Snow White. She does have the whole talk to animals and commune with nature thing, but at the same time, she seems completely out of touch with everything else. She's in the middle of a huge big deal situation where her mother-in-law is trying to kill her, and there's no sense of urgency in her mind. She doesn't even sense when danger is coming, which I think a Force-sensitive person would. Tiana is going to be same story as Jane and Megara. No Force powers, but she is doing her best, absolutely. Tinkerbell, there is a Sith if I have ever seen one, especially if you use the Tinkerbell from the Peter Pan movie, not from the Tinkerbell movies. Tinkerbell from the Peter Pan movies is essentially a murderer, so I don't think that's what a Jedi would do, and she definitely has powers, as most fairies and magical creatures do, so there you go. These are all of Ariel's sisters, and I'm just going to say they're not Force sensitive because they're not important to the plot. There you go. That's how it works. And then we have Vanellope von Schweetz, and same as a bunch of others on this list, Vanellope has no Force powers but is doing her best. And these have been my ratings for whether or not I think Disney princesses would be Jedi or Sith. Comment down below which ones you think I got right, which ones do you think are Jedi, which ones do you think have the Force or don't, whatever, let me know. Let me know what you think. In any case, Ragamuffins, if you enjoyed this video today, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the bell icon as well so you can get instant updates anytime there's a new upload. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.